Stabulator talk time. We're going to talk about reflex wings. We're going to drink the official drink of war. Stay tuned. Listen close. Brought my notes. Check it out, see what we got. Alright. So what we're going to talk about is reflex profile wings versus regular free flight wings. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there about reflex wings and if they're good, if they're bad, how to use them properly, and what you gain from using a reflex profile wing versus a traditional free flight profile wing. And I'm going to try to explain that in my own words and just what I've learned from flying them. This is a traditional profile wing, and most of the weight of the pilot and the gear is distributed evenly between the A, B, C, and D risers. Still, the A risers typically hold the most load near the front of the wing, because most of the lift of the wing is made here towards the leading edge. However, there is still lift created by the entire airfoil over the B, C, and D risers. A reflex wing, when it's in reflex mode, almost all of the weight is suspended only by the A lines. And what I mean by reflex mode is when you are fully accelerated, and most reflex manuals will tell you this, when you are full speed bar and full trims out, you're fully accelerated, that's full reflex mode. And a lot of reflex manufacturers will tell you that if you encounter turbulence or rough air, that if you fly fully accelerated, trims out, and full bar, that you are in the most safe configuration of the wing. What they mean by safe is not that the wing will recover well from a collapse. They mean that the wing will not collapse no matter the amount of turbulence that you encounter. And I'll try to explain that, because that's the sticking point between people and whether a reflex wing can collapse or not. Can a reflex wing collapse? Yes, it can. When the trims are closed on a reflex wing, it's very similar to a classic profile wing, with just slightly more collapse resistance, because the A lines are a little bit more loaded than a traditional profile wing. So yeah, they can collapse, and they do with the trims closed, but they also recover similar to a traditional profile wing. And a lot of reflex wings are actually rated E and B. They pass the free flight wing rating system with the trims closed. The difference becomes when you trim out and or you push the speed bar, both, and you put the wing in reflex mode. It changes the profile of the wing and allows the trailing edge of the wing to lift up like this. This is considered reflex mode. If you notice in my drawing here, and I will attach some other pictures in a video here in a second, that the B, C, and D lines are slack completely. And that's to show you that there's no load, there's no weight being lifted by the B, C, and D risers. All of the pilot's weight are suspended from the A's when flying the wing, the reflex wing, in this configuration. Free flight wings, traditional profile wings, cannot do this because they don't have the reflex built into the trailing edge. If you were to trim out a free flight, a traditional profile wing like this, what would happen is you would get a collapse. There's no reflex in the trailing edge to keep the profile of the wing more horizontal to the surface. It would just, the trailing edge would just come up, the nose would go down, and then the wing would collapse. The trailing edge here is pushing down. You have actually a force created by the trailing edge that is creating a downwards force here. That keeps this wing more in a horizontal configuration. If you didn't have this downforce, then this wing would just fold up and it would collapse the way that a traditional profile wing would. The reason why they say this cannot collapse is because all of your weight is suspended by this A-lines, by these A-risers here, connect to the leading edge of the wing. All of the lift that's being created by this wing is happening directly over these A-lines at the leading edge of the wing. So if you encounter turbulence, here's my, all right, I'm back. My phone was overheating due to standing out here in the sun. It's freaking hot as crap here. So as you're entering a thermal, you have the sinking air on the edges, the lifting air in the center. So normally you're entering, you're just hitting the sinking air first. So you're kind of descending, your vario's going boo. You hit the thermal, you get the beep, 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 beep. Your wing rocks back. Sometimes your wing can surge forward aggressively and you'll take a frontal collapse here because it surged so far forward that you get a negative angle of attack almost at the leading edge. It collapses, the wing rocks back again, it reinflates. But as you exit the thermal as well, if you're just flying straight through it, your trailing edge is in the lift and your leading edge is now hitting the sink on the other side. So when you have sink here, your A-lines, the leading edge of your wing gets pushed down while your trailing edge still has lift to it. If the whole wing is in sync, the whole wing just descends together. If the whole wing is in lift, the whole wing just rises together. It's when you have a difference in lift along the chord of the wing. If you have lift at the trailing edge and sink at the nose, you can take a collapse. And it'll fold under, rock back, creates a positive angle of attack at the leading edge, it reinflates, you fly away. With a reflex wing, because all of the lift is being created over the A-lines only, same scenario as you're flying through, it's in the lift, you're going up together. As it continues to the other side, there's no lift being created by the trailing edge, only over the leading edge. There's no difference there's no negative component here and positive here, because this is the only positive, and all this is just negative to maintain the profile of the wing horizontal. So if you encounter sink with the leading edge of the wing, it just makes the whole wing descend down, and the reflex keeps the leading edge at a positive angle of attack by keeping it tilted horizontal and not allowing it to tilt so far up that you get a negative angle of attack. That's how reflex works. As far as I know, I have never seen a single video of someone flying a full reflex wing, fully accelerated, trims out, full speed bar, not touching the brakes, we'll talk about that in a second, and have encountered a collapse, because it's almost impossible for your wing to take a collapse. There are exceptions. If you're flying in air that has a sinking air that's strong enough to exceed the free fall weight of the pilot, then of course it can push the wing down, make all the lines go slack, and you can take a collapse. But let's be honest, if you're flying in air that strong, there's no way that you would have even taken off in the first place. Or you should have landed a long time ago before the air became that unstable. You would have to be flying in extreme thunderstorms to encounter this type of air, or some other wild scenario. Advising you to go and test the limits, but I've never seen a single video of someone taking a collapse while flying fully accelerated on a reflex wing. People have tried to collapse them fully accelerated, and they say that you can't, because as you try and pull on these A-risers, what ends up happening is you're just doing a pull-up on the A-risers. You can't actually collapse it because there's no lift created on these other lines, so you cannot pull the leading edge down because the trailing edge is not pushing up. It's just creating a negative force to keep the wing horizontal. This only applies when you're flying in full reflex mode, fully accelerated, trims out, and full speed bar, and only on full reflex wings. Your manual will give you hints to whether your wing is full reflex or not, and what they advise you to do. if you encounter turbulence. A lot of reflex wings, or semi-reflex, they have some reflex traits, but they don't have enough reflex to create this effect, and therefore those manuals will recommend you to pull the trims in active pilot if you encounter turbulence, because the manufacturer knows that they don't have enough reflex built into their profile of their wing to prevent a collapse from happening. That's not a negative thing. That's just that design of that wing. There's trade-offs to everything. Reflex is not as efficient as a free fly wing is. Everyone knows that. So everything is a trade-off. Keep that in mind. There's a range. There's different levels of safety that people say. So there's the safety idea that if the wing collapses, that it recovers almost immediately on its own. And then there's the idea of safety that the wing will not collapse at all. And with a reflex wing, you can get both. With a free flight wing or traditional profile wing, you only get the, if it collapses, it recovers on its own, based on the EN rating system.